Okay, I'm gonna show you how to make sewn fish. I have my piece of paper here that I have glued together, folded in half, glued the two pieces together so it's thicker and a little bit firmer. I've waited until my glue is dry. I am ready to draw my fish now, okay? So I'm going to draw an acute angle and I'm gonna draw it anywhere between 3 inches, 3.5, 4, 4.5, or 5. You don't want to go less than 3 and you don't want to go more than 5. Okay, so I'm going to pick a spot on my paper and I'm going to draw my acute angle. I'm going to make mine 3.5 inches long. Just one side, and then make sure it's connecting there at the point, and then I'll do the other side. Okay, that's how big my fish is going to be. Now I'm going to give my fish teeth. This is going to help me when I go to poke holes into my fish to know where to poke them. Okay, so I'm gonna line up my ruler and I'm gonna put my teeth on the inside of my angle. So I'm gonna keep it back a little bit. And I need to make sure that I put a mark at the end of my fish and then every 1/2 inch. So I'm going to be making marks at all of the inches and all of the 1/2 inches. And don't forget this one here, but I don't need to put one here where they connect, okay? Come down here to this one. There. Okay. Now that I've got my fish measured, I am ready to start poking the hole so I can sew. So I'm going to take my safety needle here and I'm going to lift up my paper and I need to make a point here where my two lines meet. And then every time I have a mark here, I'm going to make a point. And what I'm doing to make this easier on myself is on the back, I have my hand underneath, but I have it separated so that way I can put, poke through. I want to be gentle because if I poke too hard, I'm going to end up ripping my fish, or my paper, excuse me. If my paper does rip, I can still make it work. I just need to tape the rip, reinforce it, so that way it doesn't happen anymore. Okay? Another way to do this, if this is tricky for you, is to put your needle point on the spot where you're trying to do and then gently lift up on your paper, and that will also poke a hole for your fish. Okay, so now I have my holes poked at every mark I made, making sure to do them here at the ends and then there at where they meet. Okay, now I'm ready to start sewing. I need to take my yarn and I'm going to measure out an arm's length from hand to hand and then a little bit more than that. On one end, I'm going to make a knot. So here's my end of my yarn. I'm going to show you how to make a knot. I'm going to take the two ends and I'm going to make a loop like this. So I have this end here. This end is on top of that one. Okay. I need to take this and tuck it through like that. I went up underneath. So that way it made something that kind of looks like that. And then I'm just simply going to pull the long end like that. That makes a knot on my yarn. You can stick with just doing one, but if when you poked your holes, if maybe they're pretty big, like maybe you went all the way through and the eye of the needle went through your paper as well, you're gonna need to do a double knot. So I'm gonna do that same thing, gonna make a loop, take this because it's on top of this one, and I'm gonna tuck it down underneath. The trick with doing a double knot though is you need to pull it to where your new knot is at the same spot for your old knot. So that way my knot now is twice as thick, okay? The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna thread my needle. So I'm gonna take my knotted free end. This is not the end with the knot. And my needle. And I have this little scrap piece of paper for these, okay? I'm gonna take my yarn here, place it down in there, pull it to where it doesn't stick out from the end, like that. And then I'm going to poke that through my needle, like so. And just like that, I've threaded my needle. And then this way, if my needle comes unthreaded, I can use my little scrap of paper and rethread it, no problem, okay? I'm going to use this side of my paper that has all my pencil drawings on it. I'm gonna use this as the back. So starting with the back, I'm gonna take my needle here, and on one of the ends, I'm going to poke my needle down through, and I'm gonna pull all the way until my knot is now at the end of my needle, or at the end of my paper here. I'm gonna take some tape, and I'm just simply going to tape it down. When you tape it down, don't cover up any of your other holes though. Okay, so I'm gonna tape that down so it's nice and secure. Okay, now on the front of mine, okay, I'm going to go opposite ends. So see how my thread is here at the end of this one? That means I need to come to one of these holes over here, and I'm gonna come over here to this one. I'm not gonna go to the last one. I'm gonna come to this one right here. And I'm going to poke down under, and I'm gonna pull until, whoops, it gets caught on the end of your paper. Simply pull it back, and I'm gonna pull until I now have a piece like this. So see how it goes across? Okay, on the back, I'm not gonna go across though, because that wastes my yarn. On the back, I'm going to go to the hole right next to where I ended and push my needle down through. Okay, when I pull to keep my yarn from coming out, I always hold the end of my needle so it doesn't come out of the needle. And I'm gonna pull until I can't pull anymore, trying to keep it tight but not too tight. All right, so now I'm gonna go across, and I'm gonna come across to this line, and I'm gonna go to this next hole right next to where my yarn was last time. And I'm going to poke my needle through and pull my yarn until I can't pull anymore. Looks like this, okay? Then on the back, I'm gonna go right next to it. See how on the back it makes these little loops? That's what we want. I'm gonna go right next to where I ended, and I'm gonna pull my yarn all the way through, like that. I've got my little loops, okay? Now I'm gonna take my yarn and I'm gonna jump over my fish and go to the next hole. And then I'm gonna pull my yarn through. Wait, wrong way. Pull my yarn through until I can't pull anymore, just like that. Then on the back, I go to the next hole right beside, and I pull my yarn through until I can't pull anymore, like so. Okay, then on the front again, I'm gonna jump across, go to the next hole. And I'm gonna keep doing this process until I have filled in all the holes except for this one right here, okay? So I'm on the front, going to jump across. This is where my fish lines are going to switch direction, okay? Pull my yarn through like so, okay? On the back, go beside, and then pull through. Okay, jump across to the next hole on the opposite side, pull till I can't pull anymore. Then I'm gonna come up through this one here. This is my last one I'm gonna end up doing. See, I don't have any more holes over here, and I've got one last hole right here, so I'm almost done. Okay, I'm gonna pull my yarn all the way through, and then I'll go to the very last hole here, okay? And I pull through. This ends basically my fish sewing, but I still need to give it an edge and a nose. It doesn't really have a nose. So right now my yarn is on the back. I'm gonna come up through the last hole, which is where my two pieces meet. So I'm gonna go down through that, just like so. I'm gonna pull until I can't pull anymore. Okay, so now he has a nose, but I need to finish off the sides. So with my yarn through the very last one, I'm going to jump down one side, and I'm gonna go through the very end hole, which I've already gone through once, but I'm gonna go back through it, and I'm gonna pull my yarn all the way through until I can't do anymore. Oh, look, he's got a nice defined edge, okay? This is the only time you're gonna jump across now. Ooh, I missed one there, oops. I'm gonna jump across, go to this one. I've come up through the last one, now I need to go back through the nose. Okay, just like that. My fish is completely sewn. So now I need to end my yarn. I'm going to unthread my needle, okay? And then I'm going to make a knot here, okay? This type of knot's a little tricky because I have a ton of yarn left over, okay? If you make a bigger fish than what I made, you may end up using this yarn. I would much rather you have a little bit more yarn than you think you're going to need, because it's not very fun to cut a new piece and add it on to what you've already done or have to restart, okay? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my yarn and I'm gonna make a loop, a circle, like this, okay? I'm gonna take the end of my string here and I'm gonna pull up through mine. I'm gonna keep a hold of my loop that I made though. And I'm gonna take my finger, I'm gonna press it down here where my yarn came out. I'm gonna keep pulling. This is to try to keep my knot as close to the paper as I can, so that way my fish strings don't loosen, okay? There's one knot. I like to double tie mine. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you do, then you're gonna do that same process again. If you don't, this is what you're going to do, okay? So I'm gonna cut, I need new scissors. I'm gonna cut the rest of my yarn off and save that because I might want to use it for my other fish that I need to make, or maybe somebody at my table would like to use them, okay? I'm gonna take a little piece of tape and I'm going to tape down this loose piece of yarn, just like that, okay? There's the back of my fish. If you have one of these, it's still okay. If they don't all end up being this way, it's fine. The problem is if the back of your paper, they all look like this, there's a good chance that you're gonna run out of yarn because this uses twice as much yarn as those do. So that's why instead of having you go across on the back, I have you go beside, okay? If you have a good stretch of yarn and you have one of these, it's probably not gonna be a bad thing, okay? But your back should look something similar to this. And then the front, you have a very nice, beautiful fish, okay?